And we're back. It's another school year, and we have a new lesson plan template. But honestly, it's the same as last year. We just have some frameworks that we have to implement for different content areas. So we're going to get right into it as into your expectations. First things first, we're going to start with our gradual release template. Now, there's three different frameworks. We have one for gradual release, we have science, and we have math. And so we're going to start with gradual release. Notice that the top has changed because it just says teacher name, course, and week of. That is because you are responsible for submitting your instructional plan. So sometimes I know last year some people made skeletons and then sent it out and then other people filled it in. But just know that you are responsible for uploading your instructional plan to your folder and making sure that it's there by Thursdays at 5 p.m. So let's keep going as we get into it. We start off with our standards, which you would have deconstructed on Tuesday or Monday. You would already have that there. So you really just need to copy and paste and make sure it aligns to the date that you're actually on that standard. Your instructional focus time is where you're going to plan for your instructional focus period, whether that be a re-engagement or enrichment, but it should be a plan for instructional focus. Which students will be in what small groups are you doing one-on-one? Who are you pulling out? Plan for that. And so Mondays through Thursdays should be very content specific as it pertains to that class period that you're targeting. And regardless of how many kids you have in the class, there is a plan for instructional focus each and every day. And more about that will be rolled out per admin and specifically Mr. Clark as we go through instructional focus. On Fridays, it'll be advisement, which you already see that's kind of highlighted for you. And the plan and the calendar will also be shared by Mr. Clark as it goes through our instructional focus. So then moving into the learning target should be what students are doing for that day in particular that they should be able to answer to and explain or whatever it is by the end of that class period. So my Monday learning target should be different from my Tuesday learning target, but by the end of the class period and that closing period, students should have mastered that learning target. So be very intentional about what you're putting in your learning target because remember that's not just a roadmap for their students. So when you put it for your students, so if you put it on the board, be sure that it is aligned and matched with not only just the standard, but it's the expectation of what students should be able to do by the end of that class. Then getting into our opening for gradual release, that's where you're going to activate those knowledge. If you notice in the first column, you will see some fine print or some questions that will help you with making sure you understand what is supposed to go in those boxes. So read through that information. It's going to help you think about how to word and put that information in. And remember, your lesson plan needs to be detailed so that if I have never taught this content area or if I'm not sure about what is happening, I can come in and teach it based off of your lesson plan. So please make sure that you're adding in the wording and the communication that you need to be able to teach this lesson plan and for admin to be able to go in and see exactly what you have already put on the template. So let's go back to the plan. We go into our work period, which should be the I do, which is teacher led, going into the we do, which is student and teacher led, that collaboration piece, and then going into the you do phase, which is where a student should be doing independent practice. And so that is based off of the gradual release model that we have been using for some years now, but you have that guidance there. And then you also have some questions to help you with connecting those pieces on the work period. You also have timestamps in this model because we've seen this model play a couple of times and we had enough background to know how long things should take you. Although this work period is 55 minutes, that means that I do, we do, and you do should be happening within that 55 minutes time frame. So it shouldn't be 55 minutes of just I do, shouldn't be 55 minutes of do. But it should be a flowing continuation of all three within that gradual release. So start off strong and then release that on to the students to be able to do by the end of class. And last piece of your instructional framework for gradual release is closing. Making sure you get to the closing because that's what's going to summarize and secure the learning for the student. So that can be an exit ticket, a formative, something showing that students have understand or met the learning target. It also gives you some guided questions to help you reinforce what your summarized and clarifying situation is within the closing. And feel free to also add in whatever might be homework or what they can go home and work on during that time period. That should not be all that's in that section, but that is something that you can include in that section as well. This last box is what I really want to highlight because Monday through Friday, there should be instructional supports and accommodations that are listed there. So for my co-teachers within those Gen Ed classrooms, what are you doing with the students during that instructional time that you are instructionally supporting? So if you are doing small groups or anything additional, one-on-ones, whatever that might be, what are those activities that you're using during those times, whether it be an extension to what the Gen Ed teacher already has? What are those SID strategies that you'll be using as you go in and you're supporting with that content area? And so Dr. Tilley will go over that in a little bit more in detail as to how to fill in this space, but this is to be completed. All co-teachers have access to everybody's to have access to their Gen Ed teachers' lesson plans. So as long as the lesson plans are updated and they're there, please be sure to make sure you are collaboratively planning. And if you're unable to get to your collaborative planning time, make sure there's conversation happening about how you're going to support that teacher during that instructional period. So that is there. So that is our gradual release model. Let's move on to our science model. So science is a little different this year. And if you go into Henry Connects, you will also see the same framework. And it also has timestamps within Henry Connects that kind of will help you with the alignment of how this should flow. But the difference of science is mainly for the instructional framework, which you probably learned in PD on July 28th, is that it kind of gives you a little bit more of a flow, but it gives a chance for students to really engage and apply to real world situations. So a little bit more hands-on. Those first three boxes are the same. Standards, instructional focus, learning target. And then we go into that engagement period. So how are you activating prior knowledge? It also has those pieces underneath it so it can kind of guide you with filling out your instructional plan. Then you're going to explore it. And that should be connecting to a deeper level of learning. It should be labs, it should be activities, evidence-based learning. And then you have explain. Check for understanding, new understanding, any gained results of exploring the learning, and then elaborate, allowing students to really conceptualize their understanding and speak to that. And then go into evaluate, is that last piece of that framework to check understanding of the new concept. And that shall be kind of like, it's just to see, do they know it? How are you actually evaluating those tasks? And a lot of times your success criteria will come in this area. And last but not least is the area for instructional support for the co-teachers within the Gen Ed classes. So that is our science framework, and we will go in more detail, but throughout this year, your PDs will be centered around the science framework and how that flows within your classroom. Our last lesson plan template is mathematics, which is based off of the 5E model. And it is also one of those models that is a little bit more continuous as it goes through. Again, the first part is the same. And let me go ahead and take this off because I caught my own mistake. And we're going to go through those first three boxes are the same. And then we go into engage, which is that activation of prior knowledge to spark new interest to a concept as well, or some type of short activity that can be within the engage period. Then you get into explore, which is another piece, pretty much the same as what we already said in science, but giving students a chance to connect and question the learning experience that they're having. And then elaborate, but really we're going to use apply, but how they're applying it to real world a new situation. You will see apply within Henry Connects, and you will see apply on your board as well with your instructional magnets. So do know apply and elaborate are within the same, especially as you go through PDs with math, but that's that 5E model. And then lastly is evaluate, to review or reflect on the learning experience, check for new understanding of concepts. How will you evaluate your students? And the last box again is instructional support and accommodations that will be offered through our co-teachers. So that is our math template. That's our three main frameworks that we're looking for. Your instructional magnets will match your frameworks that you have. So just be sure to make sure those are up and present. You should not have the old magnets. You should only have the new magnets. And if you do, I'll be sure to stop by. All right. So how do you upload your lesson plan? And let's go into the lesson plan naming system. So right here where you have where you submit your lesson plan. So after you make a copy of this and you go into your folders to submit, please know that we do have a naming mechanism. So you're actually going to change what the name is when you make a copy, and you're going to put it into your folder. So let's go here to the doghouse folders. And we're familiar with this. We've been using this for a while now, but it is a little bit more detailed and structured, and also as to what you have rights and privileges to. That way that we can all submit to where we need to go, and it should be a little bit faster for you to submit as well. So you will have housed here all three lesson plans. I do ask that you always make a copy. Don't leave your lesson plan just out here in the world. Be sure to go ahead and put those to where they need to go. So we've already went over the data planning for ELC, the data planning for Gen Ed, and what those folders look like. So let's go into our lesson plans. You will only see the archive folder, which is folders from last year, but you will also see your new folders that are already there, and they're broken down by your content area of what you teach. From there, you're going to actually go into your lesson plan folder, and you shall find your name. If you do not see your name, please know I did not leave you off intentionally. It was mind over matter. So I'll be sure to add you if you need a folder. If you do not see your folder, please let me know as soon as possible. But like I said, you already have those there. I'm going to go back one because I want you to see the naming template. So when you go to submit your lesson plan, I talked about changing the what it says. So you're going to use week of, course name, and then first initial and last name. Okay, so when you are submitting your lesson plans, we ask that you please start off with the week of. So if we're going into August the 4th, that is the week of August the 4th. Now I know everybody's progressions and pacing can be different, and you might go by week 1, week 2, week 3, but that can get confusing. So just to make sure that everybody is on the same page and we know what specific lesson plan that is looking towards, this is how you're going to name and submit your lesson plans. It should be the week of, the course name, and then the initial. So I decided that I would select Miss Shine from our social studies department, and we use her as an example. So if she was doing her lesson plan for next week, it shall say 8-4 underscore, then it should say U.S. history underscore in Shine. And that is how you will submit your lesson plans to make sure everybody has the same naming mechanism. So every lesson plan should look like this, okay? And just change the course name as needed, but that will help with us to be able to go into the folder and find everything that we need to find. So this is where everything is housed. Also, you can find all of this on my PD website as you go through and look at the different videos and the instructional planning, but all the templates are already on there. I do suggest that you probably pull the templates out of the PD website because you can force a copy. Also in the doghouse, you'll be able to force a copy. That way you don't have to worry about where it's going, but you can move it a little bit differently if you force the copy of it. So that shall help with that. Remember that your templates should remain in a Google document that allows us to make questions and put different information on there in real time. If you change it to a PDF or Word document, or if you're not sure of how to keep it in the document, please let me know and I'll come around to assist you. But please do not change the documents into anything else besides the Google Doc that it is already in. Okay, all you got to do is go in and type. Nothing else. Okay, so if you have any questions about that, please let me know. And this has been another instructional moment with your IEF, Mrs. Scantleberry. And yeah, y'all have a good one.